Have you ever noticed how some people can get a cold text back and just move on with their day, and you can't? A shorter reply than usual, a different tone, a few minutes of silence where there's normally a reply, and somehow your brain treats all of it like evidence. Evidence that someone's upset, evidence that you've disappointed them, evidence that you've done something wrong, even when nobody has said a single word. You don't just wonder if someone's mad at you. You feel responsible for it, as if their mood became your problem the moment it changed, like their bad day was quietly handed to you, without either of you agreeing to that. Like their mood is a test you might be failing, and you weren't even told the test had started. If that's familiar, this video isn't going to tell you to stop overthinking. It's going to show you why your brain quietly decided, a long time ago, that other people's feelings were your job to manage. Let's stay in this feeling for a second, because it shows up in more places than you'd think. Someone in the room goes quiet, and you scan back through the last 10 minutes for what you said wrong. A friend cancels plans with no explanation, and within seconds, you've written an entire story where you're the reason. Someone gives a flat, okay, instead of the usual okay, and something in your chest tightens, like you've just been handed a verdict. You send a group chat message and it gets left on read for an hour, and somewhere in that hour, you've convinced yourself everyone secretly agrees you talk too much. You ask your partner, "You okay?" for the third time tonight. Not because anything's actually wrong, but because their face did something you couldn't quite read, and not knowing feels unbearable. And then, the moment they say, "Sorry, long day, not about you," you feel this flood of relief that's almost disproportionate, like you'd been holding your breath the whole time without noticing. But notice how long that relief actually lasts. A few hours maybe, a day if you're lucky. Then a new short reply comes in, or a new silence, and the whole cycle starts over from zero, like the reassurance you got yesterday didn't transfer over to today. That's because reassurance never actually fixes the alarm. It just turns it off, temporarily, for that one situation. It doesn't teach your brain that silence is generally safe. It teaches your brain that this particular silence, this one time, turned out okay. Tomorrow's silence is a brand new case, with no memory of yesterday's verdict. This is why you can hear, "I'm not mad at you," 100 times, and still brace for it the 101st. It was never a logic problem reassurance could permanently solve. It's a habit that gets re-triggered by the next ambiguous moment, no matter how many times the last one turned out to be nothing. Here's the question worth sitting with. Why does someone else's mood cost you that much? Because it's not really about anger. Anger is just the signal. What you're actually afraid of is what anger might mean. If they're upset, maybe they pull away. If they're annoyed, maybe they like you a little less. If they're disappointed, maybe this is the beginning of them leaving. That's the real fear underneath the surface one. Not, are they mad? But, am I about to lose them? Anger isn't the threat. Anger is just the weather pattern that, somewhere along the way, got linked in your mind to abandonment. This isn't only in your head, by the way. It's been studied. Researchers have repeatedly found that people who are highly attuned to social threat are more likely to interpret ambiguous expressions as angry. In some studies, they even detected anger at lower intensities than everyone else. A look that most people would dismiss as neutral gets flagged as a warning sign. And once that happens, the brain starts collecting evidence to support that conclusion. So, it's not that you're imagining things randomly, it's that your alarm is calibrated to catch signals other people would let pass right through them. That's not a flaw in your character, that's a setting, and settings can be traced back to where they were installed. Here's where it gets even trickier. This pattern doesn't just misread situations. Sometimes it creates the exact thing it's afraid of. You think they're upset with you, so a knot forms in your chest before you've even said hello. That anxiety makes you act slightly different, quieter than usual, more careful with your words, apologizing for something nobody mentioned. The other person notices something is off, but they don't know why. All they can tell is that the conversation suddenly feels a little tense. So now they start acting a little more guarded too. Not because they were upset, because you were acting like someone who expected them to be, and there it is. The exact discomfort you were bracing for, except this time, you helped build it. That's the trap. You imagined the tension at the beginning, and your own anxiety turned it into something real by the end, which then gets filed away as more proof your instincts were right all along. When really, your instincts just wrote the first line of a story, your behavior went on to finish. Some children learn that love is stable. It's there in the morning, it's there at night, It doesn't change shape depending on what kind of day everyone had. Other children learn that love has weather, sometimes warm, sometimes cold, sometimes gone without explanation, and back again just as fast, with no one ever naming what happened in between. Maybe it was a parent who could go from laughing with you to icy silence in the space of one wrong word, and never told you which word it was. Maybe it was a house where you learned to check the temperature of a room before you'd even said hello. And when love has weather, you learn to become a meteorologist. You start reading the sky before anyone tells you a storm is coming, a change in tone, a longer pause, a door that closes slightly harder than usual, not because you're anxious for no reason, but because in that house, catching the front moving in early was the difference between staying safe and getting caught in it. That skill made sense once. The problem is, meteorologists don't retire just because they move out. You kept scanning the sky long after you left the house where the storms happened. Now you do it with coworkers, with partners, with friends who've never once raised their voice at you. One of the hardest lessons to actually absorb, not just understand, but believe, is that someone can be frustrated, stressed, distracted, overwhelmed, even angry, without any of it being about you. Being angry near you and being angry at you are not the same thing. But your brain, trained young, doesn't sort them into different folders. It hears the tone, sees the tension in someone's jaw, and files it under your fault, automatically, before you've had a chance to check. Think about the last time someone at work sighed loudly at their computer, and you spent the next 10 minutes wondering if it was something you sent them. It probably wasn't. It was probably an email from someone else entirely, or a printer that jammed, or a Monday. But your brain didn't ask for evidence. It just assumed the seat closest to the blast radius was yours. Here's why it's so hard to talk yourself out of it. You can know, logically, that your friend is just tired, but that knowledge doesn't reach the part of you that's already scanning for the next front moving in, because this was never a thinking problem. It's a forecasting habit, running quietly underneath the thinking, built from years of data that isn't even relevant anymore, and it comes at a cost. It means you're managing weather that mostly isn't there, over-apologizing for things that were never your fault, shrinking your requests so nobody has a reason to get cold, softening a totally reasonable text 3 times before sending it, just in case it comes across wrong, replaying a normal conversation on the drive home, hunting for the one line that might have landed badly, absorbing responsibility for moods you didn't cause and can't control. It's exhausting work, and it was never yours to do. And it doesn't stay in your head. Eventually, it starts running your actual behavior. It's why you say sorry when nobody asked for an apology, a reflexive sorry for taking up space, for asking a question, for existing slightly too loudly in a room. It's why you find yourself people-pleasing without deciding to, agreeing to plans you didn't want, going along with whatever keeps the temperature stable, because stable feels safer than honest. It's why conflict, even small and low stakes, feels like something to avoid at almost any cost. You'd rather swallow an opinion than risk someone's face changing because of you. And it's why you'll write a message, delete it, rewrite it, read it 4 times, and still hesitate before hitting send, because somewhere in your body, sending the wrong version of a sentence still feels like it could cost you something. None of that is you being difficult, or too sensitive, or dramatic. It's a well-trained system, still working exactly as designed, just aimed at a life that doesn't require that level of vigilance anymore. So here's the shift. It's not, I need to get better at reading people so I can catch it before they get upset. It's, somewhere along the way, I learned that other people's moods were my responsibility to manage. They're not. They never were. That single realization changes the whole shape of the problem. This was never about becoming a better mind reader. It was about a kid who learned that watching the sky was the price of staying safe, and an adult who's still paying that price, long after the storm stopped. So here's a question worth sitting with. What if they're not angry? What if that text was just a text? What if that silence was just silence? What if that look on their face had absolutely nothing to do with you? Think about how much of your life has been spent preparing for reactions that never came, apologizing before anyone was offended, explaining yourself before anyone accused you, carrying guilt before anyone blamed you. How much energy would you get back if you stopped treating every uncomfortable moment like evidence against yourself? How much lighter would a normal Tuesday feel if a short text was just a short text and not a mystery you had to solve before bed? Because maybe the question was never, Why do I think people are angry at me? Maybe the real question is, why do I assume I'm responsible whenever they are? And those are two very different questions, because one keeps you searching for signs that people are upset. The other helps you understand why you've been carrying responsibility that was never yours. If this video felt uncomfortably familiar, you're not alone. A lot of the patterns we struggle with as adults started as ways to stay safe long ago. That's what we explore here. If you want to understand the hidden patterns shaping the way you think, feel, and relate to others, subscribe to Ink Instinct. And if this video resonated with you, tell me in the comments, what's one small thing that instantly makes you think someone is upset with you? I'd love to read your answers. Until next time, keep mapping the hidden mind